Well, hello there. And today, I'm making some standard white bread. So, we're going to start off with proofing the yeast though. Here I have 12 ounces of hot water, probably hotter than I want it to be. So, we're just mixing it with the sugar for now. Before we add the yeast, we're going to make sure it comes down to temperature. Oh yeah, it's definitely way over. I can see how fast it's coming up as it is. So we're going to go ahead and just dissolve the sugar into the water. Might as well, while it's nice and warm. Excuse me. I mean, I've already let it set a little bit, so it might be down to temperature, but let's see if I can get that here on camera. So yeah, it's actually cool enough. We're going to go ahead and add it to it and go ahead and get it stirred in. And now that we've got it in there and get it stirred in, we're going to let this sit for about 5 minutes, 5 to 10. And what we're doing is we're just waking the yeast up. It's been kind of napping for a little while, giving it its breakfast. As you can see, it's kind of clumpy. And what I've put in there, like I said, 12 ounces of hot water. I put in 5 teaspoons of yeast and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So, for those that use packet of yeast, it's roughly 2 packets. Oh, wow. It might be waking up faster. Kind of breaking up some of these clumps here. Now, a lot of white bread recipes require butter in them. This one is not going to actually use butter. I'm just going to use some powdered milk when we get to that point and some vegetable oil instead of the fat. You can even use, I'm pretty sure, coconut oil if you would like. Might have a slightly different taste, but shouldn't be bad. Shouldn't really actually overwhelm it either, because you're only going to use a couple of tablespoons. But you do also add some powdered milk. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let it sit a little bit longer just because I kind of stirred it up, so I know I broke up the bubbles that were in there. But I also have now broken up the yeast a bunch, so it's no longer just big clumps. Oh yeah, it's definitely foaming. So that's good. That means that it is usable. Now the reason we proof it, as I said, we wake it up, feed it, is to make sure it works. Because you don't really want to get to the point where you've got all the ingredients together and then find out your yeast went to sleep forever because it's too old. So as a result, you do this, and it is called proofing your yeast. Okay, see as how I think we proved it. Let's go ahead and continue. So, handy dandy machine here. Let's go ahead and start by adding our liquid, which is our yeast and water mix. Just add that straight into the hopper there. And like I said, we're going to use some vegetable oil rather than actual margarine or butter. And so to this, I am adding 2 tablespoons of oil. Now that's all the liquid I'm putting in it for now. Now because the yeast is already in there, we don't want to add our salt yet. So the salt is always the last thing we want to add. So to this, we are now adding 4 cups of flour. Whoop. To this, because the sugar is already in here and the yeast, I'm now adding 3 tablespoons of Vital wheat gluten. Just a second here. Now the other part of our butter here is our 3 tablespoons of dry powdered milk. Now I'm adding what's called dough enhancer. You can buy it already made, or you can make it yourself. Basically it's a mixture of a little bit more wheat gluten, but it's also got some cream of tartar type substance in it. Usually it is cream of tartar, but it's also going to have things like baking soda and baking powder in it. It's just kind of a conglomerate of ingredients that they use to make sure that your dough rises. Do I really need it? No, but I do kind of like to use it as a little bit of a make sure that it rises good. And now I'm adding the 1 teaspoon of salt. Like I said, it's the very last thing to put in. Okay, well, that's all in there. Now, I want to set this, if it'll, Now this is a problem that I have with this one once in a while. And the only way to fix that is to unplug it for a minute and plug it back in. And of course it's going to go off telling me that there's an error. 1001, 1002. Okay. Good. Go ahead and set it up for dough pasta and hit start. Now, for those of you that have seen me make bread before, you know that what I like to do is make sure that it's got the right moisture content as it does this, where it mixes up and starts the initial proofing stage. Now, when you proof your dough, basically you're letting it rise in a warm spot the first time. And this is just to make sure that, yeah, you got it right. And the neat thing about using a machine is that the heating element in it will kick on during that proofing stage enough to actually maintain it at the temperature. Now, unlike a whole wheat dough, you actually don't need as much moisture for this. As you can see, it's already mixing quite well. But it does look like it's going to be a little dry, so I will be adding a little bit more water to it. I don't expect to need more than a few tablespoons. You can see it's already setting up into a nice little dough ball. Now, like I said before, this dough will be making 2 loaves. So at some point, we will be pulling it out, dividing it in 2, and then sticking it into our pans and then doing a final rise. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, since how I can see the fact that it's going to be the way I want it, I'm going to go ahead and lower it and let it do its job. I'll come back and check on it, and we'll keep an eye on things. See you in a few. So, the cycle on the bread machine just ended. So, let's go ahead and take a look and find that it has risen to the top of the pan. Ooh, very nice. Let's go ahead and take this out. Now at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it out onto a board that's been floured a little bit. And we are going to divide it into 2 loaves for putting in bread pans. And simple prep, just grease them with a little bit of butter. Just use a couple of old wrappers. You know. I mean, you could probably use spray if you want, or you could use, you know, an actual tube of butter if you want, but to be honest with you, why not just use the ends of it that are on the thing. And just kind of make sure you get into all the corners and the surface. Normally I would say fish the paddle out of the dough, but it seems the paddle stayed in the pan this time. But you still want to make sure you get all the dough off of it that you can. You know, don't want to waste it. Now, as you can see, it's a little sticky as far as it's going to stick. Obviously, all dough does, or at least should. But it doesn't really require a whole lot of flour. Kind of just make a nice dough ball. Although, could use a little bit of work if I really wanted to, but I don't want to overwork it because you don't want to make it tough. Just kind of use a dough blade or a knife, whatever. Yeah, I know. Do it however you want. And as you can see, it's just that simple. Kind of wipe the excess flour off. Now, you kind of want to have your oven on by now if it's not already. Go ahead and preheat it to about 400 degrees. You know, go ahead and put them together on top of your stove. And take a handy dandy tea towel or other linen that you use for covering your. Okay, and you just go ahead and you want to let it set and rise between 20 and 40 minutes. You want it to become about a little bit taller than the top of the pan. About an inch, inch and a half would be preferable. And here we go. It is now rising. Difference between proofing and rising, we already know that the yeast and all the ingredients are working. As a matter of fact, it looked very beautiful as far as the texture of the dough. So, let's see what it looks like in another 20 minutes. Talk to you then. Well, I ended up letting it rise for about 45 minutes already. So, let's go ahead and take a look at it. It wasn't quite done enough at the 20, so I let it go again. See, it's still not quite where I really would like it to be, which, while yes, I know my yeast is good and all of that, it might be a little too cold in here, even though I'm running my oven already. So, as you can see though, it's still quite large. It did rise quite well. So, for making 2 loaves with. So let's go ahead and put these in the oven. Typically for loaves, you will bake them for 20 to 25 minutes. My oven tends to run a little hot, so I will be checking them a little early. I usually check mine about 15 in. So, I will though be checking in about 15 minutes. Let's see what they look like then. So, it has now been in there for about 15 minutes. And let's go ahead and pull a loaf out and take a look. See if they're done enough to pull out or if they need a little bit more time. But like I said, my oven runs a bit hot. So I even have to adjust and keep my temperature turned down. Like I said, it's supposed to be in there for 300 or 400 degrees, and I have to run my oven at 375, just shy of, and they are looking good. I don't know if you can hear that or not, But that is definitely hollow sounding. And they have to sit like this for about half hour before you pull them out. Otherwise, they end up, well, it's a little hard to pull them out without messing them up if you do it too soon. So, this is the standard white bread that we use for sandwiches. And when I go to cut one open, I'll definitely bring you back to take a look. Thank you for watching my video. My small channel is not part of the YouTube partner program yet. Would you or could you please help me with that? There are many ways you could help me with that. To start, you could buy me a coffee or support my efforts through Patreon. Or if you wish, you can PayPal me. But I do understand not having anything to give. So free support option is just to like my videos, subscribe and join the tribe, then click the bell icon to turn on notifications. That will tell YouTube my video is worth something. Plus you can share my video on Facebook, Reddit, anywhere else you share videos with friends. Again, thank you for your support. Bonne soirée.